Story 1. Am I the a-hole for restricting sister's contact with my daughter after bringing her to a Tinder date? Throwaway. I, 25 female, and my sister Lexi, 26 female, have a pretty good relationship. Lexi is also pretty close to my daughter, Emily, 4 female. Lexi has babysat Emily several times over the years, and there's never been a problem. A couple of days ago, my boyfriend and I were going out to celebrate our 2nd anniversary. Lexi offered to babysit for us, and everything seemed to be set up. My boyfriend and I were planning to be gone for about 8 hours. Unfortunately, about 4 hours into the outing, my boyfriend started to get a migraine. He tried taking his regular medication, but they weren't kicking in that much. I decided to just drop him off at home so he could relax. I sent Lexi a text telling her that I was on my way home early. After I got home, I noticed that Lexi's car wasn't in my driveway. I went inside and called out for Lexi and Emily. They were nowhere in the house, so I immediately called Lexi. After I called her 4 times, she finally picked up the phone. I started yelling and demanded to know where the hell she was. She said we would talk after she got back to my house. About 20 minutes later, Lexi and Emily showed up and I put Emily to bed. After Emily was sound asleep, I exploded on Lexi and told her to start talking. She told me that she was chatting with a random guy from Tinder and he asked her to come over. She said she knew Emily would be asleep the whole time, so she agreed to come over. She said that everything was fine. Emily just ate some snacks and went to sleep in the guy's spare bedroom. I completely lost it. I cussed her out and told her that she was an effing idiot. I asked her how she could do something so reckless. She got mad and told me it wasn't a big deal. She would never let anything happen to Emily. I told her that she had no right to take my daughter to a random guy's home. She said that she could read people and she knew that this guy wouldn't hurt anybody. I told her that she was nuts and she put my daughter in God knows how much danger. I told her that I could no longer trust her and that I never want to speak to her again. I also told her that she's never allowed to see Emily again. She started crying and saying I was overreacting to the whole thing. I told her that I paid her to protect my daughter, not endanger her so she could go have fun. She continued to cry and beg, but I eventually kicked her out. My mom says that even though Lexi messed up big time, I still overreacted. My mom says that I should reconsider separating Lexi and Emily because they're family. Am I the a-hole? So, this is your child. This is your 4-year-old child that you have entrusted to someone, and you absolutely have every right to be mad and absolutely have every right to decide who this kid is going to see or not see. And Lexi definitely made a mistake. But I feel like it might be a bit much to, I would say that I might say, hey, I don't want you babysitting her anymore if you're going to make choices like this. That seems absolutely reasonable to me. I would make that decision myself. But to say, I never want you to see her again and I never want to speak to you again? Lexi definitely made a mistake, but I don't think it was a malicious mistake. She thought she was, still protecting Emily just fine. She was just chatting with the guy while Emily slept. And while she might have been wrong and a bit clueless about it, I don't think there was any kind of malicious intent. Just a bit of, a mistake. A very foolish mistake. But I think completely cutting her off and being like, you're out of my life now. That seems like a bit much. I don't think you're an a-hole. I want to be absolutely clear about this. This person is not an a-hole for this. But I think right now emotions are very high and the reaction was perhaps a bit stronger than it needed to be. Story 2. Today I effed up by visiting the wrong house. As a first-generation person in the United States, I've always felt oddly displaced. I didn't fit in the city my parents bought a home in. I was a Mexican-American kid who was learning English in kindergarten with one other kid also in ESL who I bonded fiercely with. That's not accounting for my father's upbringing. He is also a first-generation American, born to once an illegal immigrant, but now a married Mexican couple with work visas. My grandfather, who needs his own separate story honestly, worked for one of the big 3 automakers in the US. For reasons unknown to me, he and my family split a lot of their lives between Chicago, Illinois, and a coastal city in northern Mexico. The oldest three children were born in Mexico, while the youngest three, which includes my father, were born in Chicago. For as long as I can remember, I've wanted to visit Chicago and see where my dad grew up. It has always been important for me to understand and experience my family's roots. I've seen and spent time in both of my parents' childhood homes in Mexico. I've seen the parts of their history that remain unchanged and learned more about myself during times when I never felt too confident about who I was. I finally got the chance. My wife surprised me with tickets to Chicago for our anniversary. We made the necessary plans, and off we went. We arrived Saturday, and today was the day we planned to go see the neighborhood my dad grew up in. Well, the lot, anyway. The house was no more. The school he attended and his church, where he and his family spent six days a week, stood largely the same as they did in the mid-60s. His elementary school was now a children's home with a vibrant mural painted on the side in stark opposition to the gray clouds that seemed to blanket everything below them. My dad had given me the address and attached Google Maps photos. The school, of course, looked a touch different, but we had the address and the building was mostly the same. Same with the church. When we made the short drive to the house, I'm not going to lie, I was getting choked up. I was openly starting to cry by the time we pulled up to the remaining houses near a lot where the house once stood. I noticed that there was also an empty lot with a very similar house next to it across the street. In my emotionally charged wisdom, I rejected that side of the street and crossed the black asphalt to the empty lot before me. I looked down at the sidewalks. Tears are streaming down my face. My wife reminded me that I wanted a photo. We got it done, and we left as quickly as we arrived. You may remember that I mentioned it was our anniversary. We're on our way to Detroit for the second half of our trip. I'm in the car as I type this. On our way out of Chicago, I decided to send my dad the photos. He doesn't answer right away, but he's at work, so whatever. I go ahead and send my brother and his wife the photos with my whole sob story. As soon as I had pressed send, my dad responded. He very gently pointed out that I had been across the street crying at the wrong empty lot. I'm in Indiana by the time I get this useful piece of information. My brother and his wife, well, I immediately text them and tell them of my amazing blunder. I want to die. I briefly considered opening the door to our rental car and letting fate decide. Instead, I started writing all of this down so I could entertain you. I'm now in Michigan and excited to see Motor City, baffled at today's turn of events, and thankfully, I have my wife to laugh with me along the way. I mean, honestly, you might have gone to the wrong lot and gotten your picture taken at the wrong spot, but you were still there. You were still in an area where your father grew up, and I feel like that counts. Just because there's not a picture doesn't mean that you didn't experience something. That's a good thing to remember, folks. Not everything needs a picture. Pictures are nice. I love pictures. I take lots of pictures. But sometimes you can just cherish the fact that, hey, even though you don't have a picture to share with everyone of the correct lot, you were in that spot. You got to experience that. You got to experience other things that your father did, which seems like it's really important to you. So I would just hang on to that. And hey, if anything, like you say, this is just one time that you're passing through. If anything, it's just a good reason to go back to Chicago and experience more of it. Story 3. Ex cheated on me with her cousin and expected to save face. I think not. For context, it was her cousin-in-law. Let's start the story by saying this happened 12 years ago. I'm now happily married with 3 children and regret absolutely nothing. I was with my new ex for 3 years. I noticed that she was being extremely controlling. I was expected to give every detail of my day and tell her my schedule in advance, and if I deviated from that, she would be very upset. She chalked it up to just bad feelings she was having and shrugged it off as her paranoia about past relationships of infidelity. I had never once cheated or strayed, and I never gave her the reason to act like this. It felt unbecoming of my fiancé to act in such a way. Now this is where it gets juicy. After she asked for my schedule to make plans, as mine tends to be more hectic than hers, I noticed she was texting someone. In my line of work, if I put in more than 40 hours, I can take time off at will as long as the work is completed at a later date. I was very good friends with a brother and still am. We laugh about this to this day, and he actively reminds her of it. I messaged him stating I wanted to do something special for her a little bit earlier than our anniversary to make sure it was a special surprise. They both worked in the same fabrication facility. He was a fabricator and she was a shipping manager. He was kind enough to let me know her schedule. That's where the discrepancy falls into place. Without my knowledge, she was foregoing overtime. She worked 12-hour shifts Monday through Friday, except Wednesday, when she would only work half a day. She had been taking Wednesdays off right around the time that she started getting extremely controlling. Lucky for me, I had stacked several days of leisure time up, so taking a Wednesday off for me was not an issue. A few days go by, and Wednesday's here. I put on my work gear and leave for work. I was expecting her to leave as our apartment complex had 2 exits on the same road I could see directly across from a shopping center, so I parked my car near the back and waited. After about an hour, I noticed a very specific red Mustang with a specific decal on the back window. It was her cousin by marriage. I had also done my due diligence to take an old laptop which we kept on our desk in an office area with a full view of the living room, bedroom door, and bathroom plus the kitchen. I had set it up for remote access and had it alert me when the webcam noticed movement. Giving her the benefit of the doubt, I thought he may be dropping something off or coming over to assist her with something, as her family sometimes does. Sure enough, a message came through, so I remote into my laptop. He walks through the door without skipping a beat. She unbuttons his shirt and begins kissing him. I created a URL link for the live stream. And as she was preoccupied, we had a family group text and a friend group text. They were both part of it, but at the current time, they were currently indisposed and didn't look at their phones. They didn't even wait. They could have gone to the bedroom, but no, they decided to get freaky-deaky right there on the couch. I sent the link to the friend group chat and the family group chat. Within minutes, I'm getting calls non-stop from friends and family alike. There was no turning back. She was getting blown up, but she was ignoring her phone. Not until the 4th or 5th call came through did they decide to take a break. For context, the state I live in allows the recording of personal property regardless of occupancy. I was the only one on the lease. She wasn't allowed to be on the lease because of poor credit. The call she had picked up was from her cousin's mother, who she was banging. She answers the phone on speaker, and I kid you not, the first words out of his mother's mouth were, "Stop effing my son." They both became rigid, and she began to stutter over her words, saying, "What are you talking about?" etc. The mother then divulged that there was a live feed of them sent out by me to her family. She grabbed every pillow off the couch and covered herself up. The cousin staggered off, trying to put on his pants and shoes, just to trip himself up and bang his head off on my coffee table, leaving it with a divot. By this time, I had made my way to the front of the apartment complex. I was there to greet the adulterer as he came out of the front exit. He froze and began to cry, apologizing profusely. I'm not going to lie, what happened afterward wasn't my best moment, and I nearly got into legal trouble if it weren't for the fact that he was trespassing on private property. Let's just say I had a cast for 6 weeks, and he wasn't in any family photos for months. I went up to the apartment, where she was now fully clothed and crying inconsolably. I asked her if it was snot or semen on her face. Then I told her not to answer because it didn't matter anyway. I gave her 1 hour to move all of her belongings, as again, everything in the apartment was mine except for clothes, some makeup, and a few kitchen utensils. Her mother would not let her move in as she was just filled with embarrassment. Same for her brothers, and the cousin's mother kicked her son out. Rumors spread around our town very quickly, and for a lack of better words, she was untouchable. I don't want to side with cheaters, and I don't. What they were doing was wrong. Cheating is wrong. I don't particularly care about, since it's, what did they say, cousin-in-law and stuff. Like, they're not blood related, so you're clearly trying to provoke a reaction with the title. I mean, it's still weird. I don't think I'd ever want to be with someone I was related to through, like, marriage of other family members necessarily, but whatever. You're trying to get some stuff out of that. What I don't like is as this is happening, you are sending links of it to all the family and friends. Yes, you have evidence. I don't think there's wrong with, like, hey, you've got recording and proof of wrongdoing, so if you're seeking a divorce, you have, evidence of this cheating and stuff, fine. when you send it out to all your family and friends, having them, click on this stuff, unknowingly seeing these things, I feel like that kind of counts as revenge adult entertainment video. YouTube doesn't like the word. And you shouldn't do that. That's legal trouble. And also, like, I don't feel revenge is one thing, but there comes a point where you're kind of crossing a line and you're just taking one wrongdoing and doing your own wrongdoing. And don't you want to be a better person and just live your better life? That's the best revenge. Boy, oh boy, I really need that. A life well lived is the best revenge. Not sending out something like that. I don't think I'd encourage that. And whatever got you that cast, don't do that either. Story 4. Today I effed up by taking my wedding ring off at the gym. Long-time lurker, first-time poster, and I am posting from my phone, so please forgive formatting. I have just recently arrived home following this F-up. I, a very happily married 36 male with a small herd of children, have been going to the gym in my little town since November 2022. I always go after getting the kids to bed, which generally puts me there around 8:30 p.m. The gym I go to has 2 rooms. One has cardio equipment, ellipticals, treadmills, bikes, etc. The other room has free weights and various other torture devices. My routine begins the same every time with 9.1 to 9.5 miles on the bike, which leaves me in a state similar to that of a walrus that has just managed to pull himself onto an iceberg, very wet and breathing heavy. This process takes me to about 8:55 p.m. I enjoy hitting weights at this time because the gym is often, not always, empty, and it leaves me to grunt and groan in peace. Tonight, the gym was not empty when I entered the weight room. Now, I mentioned that I've been going to the gym since early November. In that time, I've gotten used to the people that do spend time in the gym past 9, and this person was new. Not a big deal. She had brought her own yoga mat. The ones in the gym are blue and red, and this one was tie-dye USA, and she had her phone set up on a stand. I assumed she was making a video. Both of these observations were made as I walked down to my trusty bench to start my bent-over rows. I grabbed my dumbbells and sat down to continue my ritual, and today I effed up. I always remove my wedding ring before I lift and tuck it in my right sock for safekeeping. If I try to wear it, it digs into my hand and makes things most unpleasant. So I start grunting out reps with old righty and just nicely switch to left when I feel a tap on my shoulder. So I stop what I was doing and turn to see a new girl standing behind me and sporting a menacing glare and wielding her iPhone. I popped out my earbud and asked what was up. The following conversation is as I remember it. Me. Hey, what's up? You're disgusting. Excuse me? You saw me in here and took off your ring, planning on chatting me up? This is a little paraphrased. She swore a little too, and I wasn't taking perfect notes. What? You're gross. Okay. I proceeded to put my earbuds back in and get to work while she stormed to the other side of the gym and started packing up her stuff. I watched her head for the exit while I was resting between sets. Anyway, I'm rowing away, and out of nowhere, I'm blasted with a cascade of liquid, which leads me to drop my dumbbell and spin around to see what's going on. There's new girl with her recently emptied pink Yeti screaming at me. I'm assuming for being gross. It was unclear as I had my buds in still. I remove my earbuds so I can understand her, and she storms away. I think the highlight of the exchange is that my gym shirt now smells like vodka. Do most people drink at the gym? Am I doing this wrong? I'm home, showered, and explained why my shirt smells like I've had a raging party to my wife. We both had a good laugh. If I see a new girl's video on social media, I'll be sure to share it here. I don't know who she was, but it's a pretty small town, so it might pop up. Cheers. First off, folks, can we just, there's so much filming at the gym and at restaurants and everything. Like, it's okay to put the phone down and not record everything you do, but hey, if you want to, more power to you, whatever, that's fine. But also, can we just stop assuming things based on, like, the tiniest of things? Like, yeah, someone taking off their ring after, seeing you in a gym or something. That could be a red flag, but it's a pretty minor red flag, especially if that person does not approach you, does not try to say anything to you. They have not tried to make a move. He apparently, you're coming up behind him and surprising him, so it's not like he positioned himself where he's like watching you and he's just like, yeah, see any ring on this finger? I don't think so. Like, no, you just stop. Why do people do stuff like this? I don't understand it. Just, like, no line has been crossed at this point. Just chill out. Or maybe she did that just because that was going to make a good video. Maybe she was looking for something that was going to be a content. Well, as a content creator, don't. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.